Watch Gang essentially is a platform for people to learn about watches. We work with hundreds of brands from all over the world. Core business is that you pay a monthly fee. Every time you pay, you get a watch and you keep it. So if you sign on for a year and you get billed 12 times, you get 12 watches. The whole goal for us with a new customer, show you that you shouldn't wear the same watch to the beach that you'd wear to a wedding, that you'd wear hiking. There are all sorts of these watches meant for these things. In our first year, we did $10 million. The first 16 months, we did 16 million. I got crazy offers for my company. We're talking like $50 million offers. And I'm like, nah, we're going to get past that.
Now, how did you find that supplier for the watches, and how did you know that people would go for it?
Yeah, I maxed myself out to do that. I knew that if I spent more money, I would get more sales, and I had something interesting here. In our first year, we did $10 million.
Any insight as you go back that you can kind of pinpoint as to maybe why it worked?
I got some immediate feedback, which was game changing for the company. And it was,
Matt, thank you so much for being on the show today.
hey, thank you, Omar. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. So let's get into this. For people who may not know what Watch Gang is, what is the company? Give the audience a little bit of context, and then we'll kind of get into your story, because this business model is absolutely fascinating that you've been able to do this for the largest watch community on the internet, man. So I think
Thank you. Yeah, so Watch Gang essentially is a platform for people to learn about watches. I would say the vast majority of our customers have only ever had one watch or none. A lot of times we provide the very first watch to a customer, or maybe they had something they bought at Target for a job interview or something. And really, there's a lot of education missing in the industry for young people, and people just not exposed to the watch industry, I guess. So we are first sort of a educational platform, and then we are a curation platform. So we work with hundreds of brands from all over the world, and we find interesting pieces, and we develop pieces with brands, and we bring them all to our community, and we ship watches out every day. And so we have some people that get a watch every month, every quarter, once. We have people that have gotten hundreds of watches from us, and they just get the itch, and then they fill watch boxes. And eventually what happens, I would say traditionally, is that people will sort of discover what they like about watches, which styles, and then they narrow it down. And then they generally they move on from our mystery box, which is our monthly watch, and then they buy from us from our closed members only store.
nice.
Yeah.
And how did you think of this model of it's a pretty unique model, especially in the watch industry. Like, how old were you when you started that company, and how did the idea initially come about? I'm sure there was an aha moment where you went, "Oh, this could work."
Um, well, I've been a software engineer for like 20 years, and
Mhm.
I got into advertising because I didn't really have money to pay an agency to promote my ideas. So when I would think of something, I would build it or a rough model of it,
Mhm.
and then I would advertise it, and I had to figure out Google AdWords and then Facebook and everything like that. And I liked advertising a bit more. I think maybe I was better at it. And so I was doing ads for companies, and my dad passed away, and I got his watch. And when that happened, it made me kind of take a pause from everything in my life for like a few months.
Mhm.
And I remember I was sitting in front of my laptop, and like I do a lot of times when I don't know how a lot of guys that are entrepreneurial, when they want to start a business, like the way they go about it, I always start from like a name and a domain name. I kind of just sit in front of Namecheap and I start typing in domain names. And I kind of start there and then I build from that. So I was thinking about watches because of my dad's watch.
Mhm.
And I like the subscription model. I like recurring billings. It gives you reliable income,
Mhm.
and watches are people collect them. Some people, I knew people with like a dozen watches, and I'm like, if I can sell a few watches to every customer, that would be a good business model.
Right.
So I typed in watchclub.com. Obviously, that was taken. And then I typed in watchgang.com, and that was available. I'm like, okay, this is cool. Bought it. I got the Instagram handle.
Do you remember how much it was, the domain name?
Yeah, it was $8.
No way. Watch Gang was $8.
Yeah, yeah, $8 a year. It was unregistered, so I got to register that.
What year is this?
This was in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, so 6.5 years ago. Holy shit. So got the domain name. There was a platform, a software called CrateJoy, which was like a subscription. It was like Shopify, but for subscriptions.
Mhm.
So it was like a CRM and a platform. You put up a website really easily, and then you can bill people on a monthly basis for the program. So I just spent like all day building this website out, put up some pictures on Instagram, and I got a sale, I think, at the end of the day. Like, even though I didn't advertise it, I didn't spend any money. Somebody had found it through a hashtag that I put up on one of the photos.
Yeah.
This guy, he was our first customer. His name was Corey Johnson. And Corey
Okay.
found us through an Instagram post, and he had no clue, I'm sure, that we literally launched 8 hours prior. And I didn't have a watch to sell this guy. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, all right, well, this is cool. This has never happened to me before. I've launched a lot of e-com companies, and I've never gotten a sale like that organically. So the next day I started spending like $5 a day on Facebook ads, and I got a sale. And then I was like, all right, what if I spend $50 a day, and I got like several sales. And then the third day I got like 20 sales, and I was like, this is crazy. I I think I have something here. Like, the model itself at least sounds interesting to people, and
Right.
it was like 99% guys, which makes sense to me. It's like a mystery, and there's like this fun aspect. I do like the Rolex giveaway to one of our members. And the one thing that I've always heard from people is that it feels like it's like Christmas every month. They don't know what they're getting. And guys don't really buy stuff for themselves very often, especially jewelry. So it's like this surprise, and it was cheap. It was $30 a month, and you get a watch, from a brand that you've maybe like Fossil or Michael Kors or random brands. And so anyway, I had to pause on my ads, and I'm like, all right, well, I have a real business here, I think. So I might as well build the packaging and find some freaking watches because I didn't have any yet.
So you sold it with zero inventory,
Yeah,
zero, just an idea.
nothing. All I had was a logo and a website. So I paused all the ads, and I wasn't supposed to ship anything until the 16th of the following month. And it was probably like I don't know, maybe the 25th of the previous month. So I had a good 3 weeks to get everything together and ship to these 153 customers that were in my first month. So my idea was, well, how do I profit on this, right? These guys all paid
Right.
me $30 each. I need a profit, so I have to buy a watch for less than $30, right? So I went on Amazon, TJ Maxx, and I just found like cool watches that I thought were interesting. I At the time I was like taking personalization requests. Like, people were like, "Oh, I kind of like spend that time outside, or I dress up for work." So I was manually curating every single watch for these people, and I was buying watches that cost me like 15 or $20. Sold it to them for 30. I'm like, profit. And my aha moment was after I sent those shipments out at the 16th of the following month. I like packed everything in my kitchen, sent it out. Everybody had a personalized letter from me, like thanking them for taking a chance on the company and all this. And
How how old were you at this time, by the way?
I was 31 at the time, and I'm 38 now. So I got some immediate feedback, which was game changing for the company. And it was, well, some people were very hateful. One guy said he's glad my dad died. Like, that was his response to me sending him a watch that he didn't like. And I closed my laptop, and I was like, I'm not going to take this personal. This guy's having a terrible day, and I didn't make it any better by sending him something he didn't like. So I'm just going to let that go. But one guy said to me, "Hey, I love the concept. What I don't love is that when I got the watch and I Google it, I see it on Amazon for $20." He's like, "It feels like I got ripped off." And that's when the light bulb went off to me. I'm like, okay, this makes total sense. I wanted to argue the values in the curation, which it is, but not when somebody can easily just go see that the watch is like, the actual value of the watch is less than what they paid. Then they have to mentally go, oh, I paid this guy $10 to curate it for me. Like, it doesn't feel good. So I'm asking myself, how do I get a hold of watches that are actually valued as much or more than people are paying, and I'm still able to profit? And so I reached out to dozens of these watch brands, and I'm like, this is my idea. This is what I have. I think that I can buy 2,000 watches from you next month. Can you sell it to me for wholesale? Right. and I got a company to agree to it. It was called So and Co in Brooklyn, and I flew there. I met the CEO and the directors there. Looked at their warehouse, and they're like, "Are you're really going to buy 2,000 watches?" I'm like, "I'll buy 5,000 watches from you." And they said, "If you really buy 5,000 watches from us, we'll sell it to you for 15 bucks a piece." And the watches were all like $90 value. So in my head, I'm like, this is amazing. I'm getting a 50% gross margin. My customers are only paying $30 for a watch they could only buy for 90 online. So for them, it's a great deal as well. And they shipped me the watches, and I shipped those out to my customers the following month. And I had turned ads on back then, or by that time. I pulled in like 2,000 customers that month, shipped out 2,000 watches from my garage, and that was it. We were kind of off to the races because then people got those watches and they're like, shit, you did it. These are cool watches, good value. I'm in. Let me stay on and see what else I'm getting next month. And then it just grew from there.
Wow. Now, how did you find that supplier for the watches, and how did you know that people would go for it? Like, what made you so confident? 'Cause that was heavy to capital. I mean, it wasn't on consignment or anything, right? You had to pay the cash front for the 2,000 or 5,000 watches.
5,000 watches, 15 bucks a piece. So, 70 something thousand dollars or whatever that bakes out to.
Did you have cash for that, or did you have to use credit cards at that time, or had you had a little bit of cash by then?
Yeah, I maxed myself out to do that. I had like,
Really?
yeah, I had very little cash in the bank, and I just kind of was like, all right, let's do this. I feel good about this because I had tried to advertise other businesses before, and I was in advertising. So I saw when people would get conversions, my conversion rate was high. My CAC
Uh,
was low. I knew that if I spent more money, I would get more sales, and like I had something interesting here. And so after I got the feedback from people that even stayed on, even though they found the watch that they got for less, they still stayed on, some of them. I'm like,
mhm.
if I can solve that obstacle and give them something of real value, I'm gonna have a good company. And
Yeah.
so I took a chance on it, and it worked. It grew, and I kept having to pause ads because I would run out of inventory, and I had to go find more inventory. So you asked me, how did I find that watch supplier?
Yeah.
I just was Googling like micro brands, like watch brands, interesting brands, and then finding contacts and calling everybody. And back then, I was doing everything. I was making all those outbound calls. I was receiving all the customer service calls. I mean, I took phone calls at 3 in the morning sometimes. I was not sleeping. I was shipping
Yeah.
everything myself, doing all the ads. Like, it was wild. But I hired one of my best friends like in month two, and I'm like, look, I need you to take over customer service. That's the part that's taken me a lot of time, and it seems like this is an easy layup for somebody else to do. So did that, and I just kept hiring my friends, and as we grew, and handed off more of my responsibilities to them so I could focus on the growth.
Dude, that's incredible. And prior to that, I know you had done a bunch of business ventures, you had some experiences, but had you ever had momentum like that early on, or was that the first time that you really had a taste of success and momentum that you had been craving as an entrepreneur?
I would say the closest thing I can think of that felt like the growth was really strong like that was I had a free hosting website back in like 2005, a
Mhm.
long time ago. And I was super into like coding
Yeah.
back then, and I was into hosting. So I had a free host, which back then, like, where GeoCities and stuff like that. It was sort of
Yeah.
like that. So you would go to this website, and I would give you basically a hosting account and a subdomain on a short URL that I bought, and you could have your own website. And I would make money on like ads. I would put ads on your site, and then I could make money that way, or I could sell a premium account. That thing, I had like several thousand customers come in for free accounts because there wasn't a lot out there back then, and I was really early. So that felt similar, but I was like a teenager. I didn't know how to monetize that. If
Yeah.
that happened to me now, it would be way different. But back then,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I was new to everything. I was just figuring everything out on the internet.
Yeah, dude, 100%. So then how long did it take, to really get in momentum, maybe hit your first seven figures in revenue? Was it that first year that you guys hit your first million in top line, or
In our first year, we did $10 million in
no
revenue.
way?
Yeah, in the
Revenue?
first year. I remember, I think the stat was the first 16 months we did 16 million. So in the first year we did 13, I think, 13 million in sales, which was bonkers, right? Cuz I I couldn't believe it. It just was growing so fast. Um and I was just figuring out like, okay, more growth. Like, how do we keep it growing? I wasn't worried about profitability because back then, um, nobody really cared about profitability for VCs and stuff. They just wanted to see top line growth.
Right.
And a friend of mine invested so I could keep growing because, I'm dumping money into ads. I have to buy inventory for 6 months out because
Right.
I don't know where, yeah, I can't keep hustling to get a watch or a bunch of watches every single month. So I had to get a warehouse, buy all these watches. That takes investment. So my friend invested and
Yeah, it makes
helped
you.
me grow in that way
Did you ever have times as you were trying to scale it where things almost broke or like you were tight? Just
all the time. I feel
yeah,
like I blinked and the last 6.5 years went by. Like I can't believe that,
yeah,
I mean, it's felt like, it's felt like we've been driving a car, changing the wheels while we're on the highway still driving. Like, it's always felt that way. It's never
yeah,
felt like we could just kinda, like, stop, make it perfect, like, and then get back on the road and, we never pull over. We're just
yeah,
go, go, go since 2016. Not the best way to operate a business, to be honest. We were high growth, and so we were nimble, and my team was amazing where they were able to like be so flexible and make changes on a dime. We would have I mean, we had situations where we had to ship our watches to a customer to customers and they didn't land yet, and all of a sudden we have nothing, and then they're like, oh, they actually got stuck, like,
yeah.
in customs. We had a truck driver take an entire truckload of our watches hostage once because
No way.
we're pretty sure he was doing a drug deal because he leaves New York with a truck full of our watches,
Yeah.
and then he just ghosts us. He's like, won't answer the phone. And then he tells us, I have to make a stop in Detroit. We're like, no, you don't. You're not stopping in Detroit. These watches have to come across the country. And he's like, I'm not answering my phone again for 3 days. I'll see you in LA and I'll be there. You just have to trust me. I'm like, all right. And he did show up with our watches. But we had times where we had to like quickly get new inventory like within 2 days, and our team was able to put it together.
Wow, dude,
But
that's
if I missed a
incredible.
shipment, imagine, right? If I missed a
Yeah,
shipment, that's all my revenue came in one day. It was during rebills. So if
yeah.
I miss that shipment, all of a sudden I can't make payroll because I can't collect the revenue from these customers, not ethically.
So when you were building, were you pulling out profits? Obviously, I know. Obviously, the answer is you weren't pulling out that much because you had to reinvest. But
Yeah.
what was your rationale with pulling out profits, right? Because most entrepreneurs, you know how it is, right? They make their first 20, 30,000 a month and they start pulling money out real quick.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you realize like, oh, I need to kind of like fund the road ahead.
Yeah.
So how were you thinking about it? Or was it just such a drug and intoxicating the momentum that you were like happy to reinvest? Like, kind of walk.
It was always being reinvested. I never took profits out. I mean, I bonused my teams. I took a bonus here and there, the small ones, but I
Yeah,
never took profits out because all I cared about was top line growth and then selling the company one day. That was
yeah,
where I was like, this is what I will, this is how I'll build like the next generation for me. And it'll be a huge exit. And the thing is, man, it's funny. I got crazy offers for my company years
yeah,
ago that I turned down because our revenue was just growing so fast. I'm like, that's not a good offer. I'm
yeah,
gonna I'm gonna double next year. Why would I take this offer today? We're
yeah,
talking like $50 million offers, and I'm like, nah, we're gonna get past that. And then COVID, and then Russian war, and then iOS update, and all this stuff happens, and then you start to take a little perspective. You see
yeah,
what you could have done, and now I'm focused on profitable growth. Now it's like for the past year and a half, all I care about is I don't care about top line. I care about can we be lean and profitable, and can all of my people that have been here for years get paid? I'm trying to make everybody like happy about how long they've been working for me.
I love that. So a couple quick questions about that. How many employees are you guys at now?
We're at 30 now.
Full
Uh,
time?
yeah, I think that we were at, yeah, if you add our contractors and things like that, it's probably like 50. But at our peak, we were probably at 45 full time and maybe 70 total with contractors and stuff.
Yeah, dude, that's wild. And then I'm curious, is like right before you started the company, were there any key aha moments or insights? Like as you go back, I'm sure there was a bunch of different businesses you had tried. Maybe share with the audience, like, was there a aha moment where like something was different when you started this? Obviously, it was the right idea at the right time. But can you
Yeah.
can you take the audience back? Because there might be people watching this, men or women at any age. A lot of our audience is entrepreneurs. who might be, maybe you at 30, right before that big break at 31, metaphorically speaking, who are just on the cusp of trying to figure it out, trying one more thing. Any insight as you go back that you can kind of pinpoint as to maybe why it worked, and advice you give to others to find their own, niche or momentum in their business model as they
Uh,
think of it?
Yeah, I will say, in my experience, the times where I've tried to make something work when I kind of knew in my gut that it wasn't going to, I just ended up wasting time and money. You know, don't be afraid to let a bad idea fail. That's what I would
Hmm.
say. People, a lot of people get hung up on something that they believe that it should be working. But if the
Yeah.
market is telling you that they don't want it, not in numbers anyway or in volume that you need to sustain a business, don't don't be so obsessed with that and let it go and work on something else because the what you'll generally see with an entrepreneur is that um, there are always ideas. Ideas are worth nothing, basically. It's about
Mhm.
implementation and your work ethic and your motivation behind these things. If you have real motivation behind what you're doing, you'll find a business model that works. And
Mhm.
you might have to try a dozen different businesses. I cannot tell you how many businesses I have started and advertised, and I gave up on it because I'm like, all right, well, nobody wants this. This was a dumb idea. Next, and I move on to the next one. I don't treat
Can-
them like my children, where I'm like, oh, this must be nurtured and it has to grow. Now, a good product person might be able to do that, but good product people tend not to be good advertisers. And so,
Mhm. Yeah.
if you have a great product, people will find it and they will generally like if there's a need, because you can have a great product and there's no need. You're not solving a problem. I wasn't really solving a problem except for boredom. I basically have a business that it's fun for guys because guys don't have a whole lot of things they can do when they're just chilling at home, and it's like a fun thing and it's not crazy expensive. So I tapped into that and I got lucky there. I really believe that. But I'm not solving any major problems with this company. And maybe on the watch brand side I was. Maybe that's why I could get the inventory because they had too much that they couldn't
Yeah.
sell from years prior, and I was able to get it for wholesale prices. So yeah, for anybody watching that needs advice on that, like don't get hung up on an idea if you see it doesn't have traction. Move on to something else, or at least while you're nurturing this little baby idea, build something else as well in tandem and test that too. I'm a huge proponent of this thing called dry testing, where you come up
Mhm.
with an idea and you maybe spend a little bit of money on ads to see if there's interest. Build a great landing page and a sign up form and see if people put their email address in. If they're not willing to put their email address in to say they're interested, they're never going to put their credit card in. So that's a great way to see if you have an idea worth building.
Mhm. Can you share some of the ideas that you started early on that failed before you hit this $1 million a month business?
Absolutely. The one right before Watch Gang was Snackula, and it was a logo of a little vampire that was eating, and it was like your world food box or whatever is so stupid. There were already snack boxes like from around the world. Maybe my brand was just dumb. I tested like I probably spent $100 on ads and I got nothing. I'm like next. And you know what? Also, I was thinking about like I would rather if I'm not feeding people, I don't want people. I don't want to be responsible for somebody like choking or being poisoned by some brand of chips that I got in Japan or something. So I'm like, let's just move on from that.
Yeah.
But dude, a ton of crappy, stupid ideas and businesses. I have made hosting companies, domain name registrars. I did stuff in niches like for God, I did so many drop shipping type of businesses where I would like drop ship products from other companies or wholesale. I was selling candles in like the early 2000s. I sold pirate swords on eBay. That didn't work. But this was back when you could buy a front page eBay ad for 900 bucks. And I was a teenager and I was like, all right, I've got $900 I saved from McDonald's. I'm willing to test this. And I had pirate swords that I bought wholesale. I'm like,
Yeah.
why not? This is cool. I'm a kid. I love these, but who's buying those? Well, let me tell you, no one. So I spent my $900 and I made like 800 in revenue from the swords. So I'm like, all right, fail.
Yeah.
Next.
That's crazy. And then also at that time in 2016, were you inspired by the Dollar Shave Club, or what inspired the
Yeah.
recurring membership model? Because now, we all see it, right? Even with Apple, like all these companies, they're happy to let you finance it. They want you to break payments for recurring revenue,
Yeah.
obviously at a corporate level or for publicly traded companies, obviously for the shareholders, predictable revenue, right? It's
Yep.
kind of the trend over the last decade. But back in 2016, it wasn't as popular as it is now, right? Everything has a membership now.
I'm a
But back then,
trendsetter. What can I say?
yeah, there you go.
No, I absolutely was inspired by Dollar Shave Club and companies like that. I love the recurring business. And what I will say is that the giveaway that we implemented back then, that was for sure game changing. And I've seen every company start implementing that. Like a couple years after I did this, I just saw people doing giveaways on every company, whether or not it made sense, and it works. It's fun. It's also good at building community. People kind of get together, they're excited about this. And, as long as you're giving them a good product also, then it's not gimmicky, you know?
Right. And what's the model, just for context, so people can get a little more zoomed in a model? I know you guys do the giveaways, but can you give the audience a little bit of context as to how the business model actually works? Because I know you guys have tiers of different platforms and different caliber of watches, and then
Yeah,
you guys have giveaways. So for people listening who might be interested, dude, I just heard about this a couple of days ago, and I was like, "Holy cow, where has this been?" So I might even sign up today. But for audience who are not familiar with it, can you share the business model and the giveaway for people who know nothing yet about it?
absolutely. So core business is that you pay a monthly fee for
Okay.
every time you pay, you get a watch and you keep it. So if you sign on for a year and you get billed 12 times, you get 12 watches. And those watches will be from different brands, different styles. The whole goal for us with a new customer is to teach you about different watch brands and styles. Show you that you shouldn't wear the same watch to the beach that you'd wear to a wedding, that you'd wear hiking. There are all sorts of these watches meant for these things. So that's number one.
Gotcha.
In terms of the different tiers, we have like our base, which is fashion watches. Think Fossil, Michael Kors. We have our step up from there, which is called Black Tier. That
Hmm.
is so original is 79 a month or a watch really. Black Tier is 199 or 149, I can't remember. Um, and that gets you watches worth up to 500 bucks. So watches that you would get at maybe like a mall or micro brands that have automatic movements or really something interesting about it, a tool watch like a diver watch with a rotating bezel and a helium escape valve. These are things that you could find in watches like that. And then our highest public tier is called Platinum, and that gets you watches worth up to $1,500, and that's 400 bucks per watch. And you can sign up for like monthly or quarterly or just one. Some people just sign up for one watch and they see if they like it before they rebuild.
Dude, that's awesome. Did you ever consider the concept of renting the watches and people ship them back, or logistically was that too complex? I'm
So
curious. I'm sure you guys brain dumped on that one.
there was a
But
company that popped up called 11 James back in 2017, I think, and that's what they were doing. And they took in $40 million in investment, right? 40 million bucks,
yeah,
and they were bankrupt within a year. And I don't know if it was because it was mismanaged or it just wasn't a good business model, but to lose that much money, I mean,
yeah,
that's crazy. I always thought they just must have not have run the company well because if you do proper background checks on people, I mean, you're not going to send somebody a $10,000 watch without doing a credit check or something on them. You should not do that. So even if it's insured. So I don't know if they were doing that or not, but I did consider it for a while. And I saw 11 James pop up and burn away so quickly. I'm like, I'll just stick to what we're doing here. But there's a company, a friend of mine owns it actually. It's called Switch. And they're doing that for jewelry and purses and stuff. And it's doing very well. It's a very cool company.
hmm, interesting. And then in terms of the giveaway, how does that work? I believe you guys give away a Rolex.
Every
And
Friday.
yeah, and then on Tuesdays you do another giveaway, right?
Yeah,
Tuesdays and Fridays.
tag. Yeah, tag
Tag,
Heuer.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've been doing that for 6 years, and it's just built into our margins. So if I spend $25,000 a month on Rolexes, I know
Mhm.
that eats away at $25,000 worth of my profit. So I have to make sure that I'm always balancing those things in. But it's just part of the business. It's the business model. So every Friday, one of our members wins a Rolex.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know you guys also have a community as well, right? If people are interested, they could join the community as well, Facebook group and the website and stuff.
Yeah, we have a Facebook group. It's been interesting watching Facebook kind of peter out, or the way MySpace did. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I'm seeing. It feels that way. We have like 40,000 people in our Facebook group, but the engagement is far less than what it was 5 years ago. I mean, I would go live and do a Rolex giveaway on a Friday and have 10,000 people watching live, and now it's more like 800 maybe. People just aren't using it as much anymore.
That's interesting, man.
Yeah.
And where do you see the landscape of, the company going next? I know you said you have ambitions to obviously scale it and potentially exit one day, but what's your vision of what's next, given the landscape of things? Like you mentioned, the iOS update,
Hmm.
the change in Facebook ads. I'm sure the Facebook ads aren't what they once were. As somebody running the company, what are things you're looking at to kind of innovate and kind of mitigate some of that as you grow the company?
Well, I am sort of launching what our product actually is. I
Hmm.
was explaining to you how it felt like we've been running the car down the road trying to change the wheels at the same time.
Building the
So
airplane in the air.
yeah, yeah. So for the last 6 months or so, we've been building what I wish I would have built in when we launched, and that is a very well-rounded and polished product called the Journey, and that's what we are releasing this year. And the Journey it's a very well thought out 6 month sort of journey that you take, that we kind of take you through the journey of watch ownership, of being educated about the watches. Why did we send you this watch? Not just, hey, here's this great watch, right? How about, like, here's this great watch made by this guy who built it because of this. Like, here's his story. Here's why the watch has value and why it's cool. So that way, when you talk to your friends about it, you understand, like, why it has value, why it actually is cool, and what
Mm,
it's used for.
mm,
And then, like, we're gonna take them along where maybe on like month three, we give them like a watch case. And yeah, it's a very, I don't want to give it all away yet, but
yeah.
that's what I've been working on for a while. And that's what I'm most excited about for sure with the company. And when you ask about the future right now, I'm only focused on profitably operating the company, because I don't want to I don't want to live on VC money or loans or anything like that. And to date, we haven't taken VC money. We've done over $200 million in sales. And,
Mhm.
you know, it used to piss me off because companies like 11 James could take and squander 40 million and then just go bankrupt. And I took nothing. And I'm like, look at the revenue we've done. How could I not have VCs throwing their money at me? I kind of get it now. I think, it's not a $1 billion business, but it's definitely, it's pushing 9 figures. So I think we're getting there.
Yeah. And the question I want to ask, dude, is were you passionate about watches when you first started, or was it kind of more the business that you were passionate about when you started?
It was really just my dad's watch I was passionate about. All of a sudden I had, like, the thing that I cared about the most was a watch, and I didn't care about watches at all before that.
Hmm.
So I had my dad's watch, and I'm like, there's this feeling to it. And I remember talking to other people about a watch, and they always had a story. Everybody wearing a watch had some story associated with it, whether it was like a job interview or graduating or the birth of their child or they got married. Like, everything was like that. And
Or was
I started,
it
yeah,
yeah.
passed down from the parents, and I just loved that. It's like nobody's gonna pass their iPhone down to their kid when they die, you know?
No, that's crazy. And in terms of competitors, have you ever had anybody spring up and try to emulate the model, or no real
So many,
competitive style?
so
Really?
many,
So
so
what's allowed
many.
competitive edge? Because that's how it is nowadays, man. As soon as people see any idea, boom. And we see it with software, we see it with
Mhm.
hardware, physical products, especially with drop shipping and white labeling.
Yeah.
How are you guys able to weather the storm, or do you think a big part of it was kind of getting ahead of the curve first and just having
I
the
got
edge?
lucky in that when I launched, it was cheap to advertise, so I was able to build a pretty large community before anybody else, so I had a head start. I also made very good relationships with tons of watch brands.
Hmm.
So when a company would pop up, um, you know, they're already, like, the companies are already working with me, and they don't want to alienate my business. Where, let's say I'm going to buy 1,000 watches from you next month. They're not going to potentially risk that business to sell 10 to this new company, you know? And honestly, I got reached out to by some brands, and I was like, yes, sell to them, of course. Like, I like healthy competition, actually. I'm not trying to, like, ruin somebody. Yeah, like, fuck you a little bit for stealing my idea, but let's go. Let's put the companies up against each other and see what happens. And generally, what happens was that these guys would get some initial, heat going.
Yeah.
Maybe customers of mine mostly that would leave for whatever reason they didn't like the watches. They're like, oh, a new one. This one will be better. They get on, they last a month or two, they see, okay, well, it's not better actually. And then they can't scale and then they close. And that's what's happened with like 6 or 7 different companies.
Yeah. And what's cool about it too is you guys don't make or manufacture any of your own watches, right? You use trusted suppliers, so you don't have the issue.
We will go to
Of,
brands and we
yeah.
will manufacture with those brands. We'll say like, hey, we see these trends happening in the market, or hey,
Mhm.
we have this huge customer profile of preferences. Or like if you make a black watch, like all black with gold markers, this is just an example.
Yeah.
We think it will be perceived very well, and yeah, and so they'll make it, and then our customers get exclusive access to these pieces, which is crazy because like a major brand that doesn't sell anywhere else, they're like, this is a Watch Gang exclusive, which is really freaking cool. And then sometimes we'll have like early releases, like Timex will sell to us before they release on the like on their website. They'll sell to us first, and we'll get to
Mhm.
sell those to our customers. So yeah, it's been very interesting, and the manufacturing process is like, and it takes a long time, and I have a brand now called Patrick that we're soft launching it right now. That's our first real brand. And that it took a year. It took a year to develop and manufacture that brand. So it's a crazy process.
That's awesome. But that's
Yeah.
also intelligent because then you don't have to worry about creating products from scratch. So that operational complexity is off the table, and then it
Yeah.
becomes a logistics, more of a storage, shipping, logistics type of business, and you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about making the watches, which is a whole nother layer of
Yeah,
complexity.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, dude, that's smart. Okay, quick question I have for you, man. Looking back, if you were just starting today, given the current landscape and how competitive it is, especially in the recurring membership sectors, is what would you do differently? Or for entrepreneurs watching, what advice would you give them about how to, maybe think about building a business on two factors, right? Number one, recurring revenue, but number two, positioning themselves as best as possible to, kind of put up with some of these things as we see kind of the walls caving in on a lot of these different industries becomes more and more tricky to have a competitive advantage. So I know it's a tough question, right? And you're probably still figuring that out now. But given how far ahead you are compared to most entrepreneurs, what advice would you give them on that $200 million in revenue win?
Well, we did that revenue because I was so focused on top line growth, and I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
worried about profit. I wanted to sell the company one day and let somebody else figure out profitability at scale,
Right,
because at scale, like once you get to a certain point, uh, there are just levers that you pull to make the company profitable.
right.
You lean out here, you
Sell a subscription for
yeah,
$15 a month for verification.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
So that part was never really on my radar until recently, until COVID actually, where our revenue dropped 40% in 1 month because of COVID. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, we're done.
but why? What was the?
People freaked out. No, well, number one, the warehouses weren't able to ship on time. But two, people paused their subscriptions because they thought the world was ending. They're like, maybe I should save this $100 this month, not get a watch in the mail while I watch the world crumble around me, with this pandemic. And so our revenue just tanked.
Right, and they weren't out as much. They probably didn't have a reason in their mind. Oh, I'm not going out as much, so I don't need the watch to go out. That kind of
Yeah.
rationality.
Now, luckily, we got a PPP loan like 3 months after COVID, and that saved us. And then while people were locked inside, luckily I had this community. And so
Mhm.
people started buying watches to be able to share in the community, which was really cool that I did not expect. I thought the
Mhm.
same thing that you just said was they have no reason to buy a watch. They're not going out. But instead, it gave them a reason to have some fun while they're sitting inside. And then they log into the Facebook group and they're showing off the watch. They're asking what everybody thinks about it and things like that.
Right.
So if you are only poised for growth and some major disaster happens, it's going to be a lot harder to survive. If you're
Mhm.
profitable, it's easier. So it's almost like this insurance policy that you have. I got very lucky because of the PPP money that the government was giving out. If we didn't get that, we probably would have gone bankrupt. And
Really?
yeah, I mean, it was bad. You know, we to lose 40% of your sales overnight. I
Yeah.
still had all my team. You know, I had POs that we cut. I had to pay my vendors. Like I knew that if I failed, that would be a ripple effect. Not only are my employees gone, all the companies that I pay, they're gonna have problems. You know, I mean, I account for like millions of in dollars in sales for companies that aren't me, you know? And
Yeah.
so I was just very grateful that we didn't have to close the business down. Um, but yeah, if we had been a smaller, more profitable company, I don't think it would have been so it wouldn't have been so scary. So any new company that I would start today, I would I would not focus only on the growth. I would make sure that it's a lean company, and I would just do this. Like instead of just hiring a bunch of people and then waiting for the growth to catch up, and then I would just do this in smaller steps.
Hmm. Yeah. So a little bit more patience, and sort of like, okay, can you give an example of maybe looking back, one thing you would have done to maybe maximize the profit lever, even if it means minimizing top growth,
For
top
sure.
line? Like,
Absolutely.
just give a practical example for people listening.
Absolutely. Marketing is just a great example because as you turn up marketing, you in theory are turning up customers, which is turning up revenue, right? But because I'm a rebilling company, I'm not going to see profit on those customers for several months because there's product costs, there's
Right.
the CAC of the marketing, the shipping, all that stuff. So it takes a few months to actually become profitable.
Mhm.
So if I spend $1 million, let's say in January, I'm not going to recoup that until March or April, but I'm still spending in February and March and then April, right? So for me, I was just dumping all this money into marketing, seeing the tail grow. Like I know the revenue's coming, right?
Yeah.
But if you keep increasing your advertising, you're never going to actually realize the profit unless you get to some crazy like hockey stick graph metric, you know? But
Yeah.
what I could have done back then was just go slower, you know? But for me, being in advertising, I'm like, hey, while it's good, go. Like max the ads out, get as much as you can, and then slow down. And unfortunately, that just never really worked out for us because we just kept increasing, the marketing. Like there was a time in 2021, I think, we were like the lead sponsor for UFC for like the Conor McGregor fight, and that was so expensive. And we
Dude, I
were,
think I saw that.
yeah,
Actually, I saw that. Yeah. Now in retrospect, I think I
yeah,
saw it.
the one where he
How
broke
much,
his leg.
if you don't mind me, yeah, and he said, Doctor Stoppage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you guys sponsored that Conor McGregor fight?
Yep.
How much did that cost?
We paid like $500,000 to sponsor that fight. And that got us like our name in the ring, some tickets to go to the fight. They would say like we were the main fight card. So like every fight before Connor and Connor, they're like fight coverage brought to you by watchgang.com where you can win a Rolex every month or every Friday, whatever. And
Yeah.
so it came with good coverage. We did see a spike in traffic, a spike in sales on the day. Not anywhere near $500,000 in sales, not even close. Where
Yeah.
we made our money on that, it was in the long game, being able to use the assets of the UFC. We made a watch with the UFC. We made a UFC watch. And so we were
Oh,
able to sell that watch, use the assets from the advertising, use UFC like logos and all that stuff in our emails. It took a while, but we made that money back. But that was a huge investment up front, you know?
yeah, yeah.
And for
There's,
sure, not a profitable, like
yeah,
you that's not the kind of risk you take when you only focus on profit, you know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. But you were thinking like long term. Let me take a chance. Never
Yeah.
done this. Yeah, it could be explosive. Yeah, totally. I remember even we interviewed the founder of Fit Tea. I'm sure you're familiar with
Oh
Fit Tea
yeah.
back in,
They
when
were
they.
like the first Instagram influencer product, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And they were paying Kylie Jenner, Kim Kardashian, the whole Kardashian clan, right? You name them.
Yep.
And they were saying that for every 100 grand, literally it was like literally they'd pay 100 grand and get 300 out like within
Yep.
3 days.
Yep.
Like it was just so brand new that
Yeah.
it was a win-win across the board. But you fast forward later, the prices are 10 times higher, and you already know you're not making an ROI. It's just a long-term leverage play for branding.
Exactly.
So it's a totally different landscape as it gets more and
Exactly.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Well, dude, thanks so much for sharing all that. That's really awesome.
for
Um,
sure.
Two last questions I have with you is, for people listening, and I know kind of we asked about it early on, but for people listening who are maybe looking to, maybe they've tried a different, a few different business endeavors. Maybe they've had some successes, some failures, kind of rode the roller coaster a little bit, but they haven't had that home run. What advice would you give to somebody who's sort of struggling and trying to find that next home run to really get momentum off the ground in their business?
Right now, my answer is going to be very different than it would have been even like a month ago. And
Mhm,
it's you better be using AI. Like
mhm.
this is not a fad. Like anybody that thinks that this is going to just be like a quick flash in the pan type of thing, this is the biggest thing since the internet, since cell phones. Like this is that version of that. Like I remember when the internet was like all of a sudden everybody's talking about the internet, and then all of a sudden everybody has an iPhone, and then the apps that you have access to, and now there's AI. Like this is such a huge tool for you to use to make money online, even to generate ideas. If I was a person struggling, if I was an entrepreneur struggling to come off the ground with a good idea, the first thing I would do is go and use ChatGPT for hours, and I would learn how to use it, and then I would start prompting it and asking it questions like, "Give me 4 ideas in the e-com space that are a niche, that have low competitive keyword, Google AdWords costs, that I can launch with under $1,000." And it will be like, "Here you go." It's like unlimited access to all of human knowledge, but condensed into a way that it's explained to you. Like you don't have to go searching web pages for this; it will just tell you. So that is what I would say for anybody is like use it, come up with some ideas, and then launch those ideas. Dry test the way that I talked about. Build cool landing pages, which you can also do with AI. It will code it for you. It will design it for you with Midjourney or Dolly, and there's just no excuse. Launch a landing page, and then spend $5 and see how many emails you get, and then spend $20 and see if it scales. And if you have emails coming in for like a buck or two a piece, maybe you have a company. Maybe then choose that one to focus your time on.
Dude, well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing that. Any last words of wisdom for anybody who is looking to take their life or business to the next level, or anybody that might want to check out the watchgang.com?
Well, it's going to be both of those things because if you want to take your life to the next level, you should be wearing a nice watch, probably. So go to, yeah, watchgang.com is the website, at watchgang on Instagram.
Perfect. And we'll link those down below.
Cool.
Matt, thanks so much for hopping on. And for those of you guys watching, make sure to live strong, live with passion, and do yourself a favor. Join the Watch Gang. We'll put a link in the description down below. Till next time, see you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.